It is no secret that one of my favorite places to shop for crafting inspiration and supplies is actually the kitchen aisle at the dollar store. Here are a few crafts and DIY home decor projects that you can make, starting with kitchen items from Dollar Tree. All right, for this craft, you're going to want to grab a cookie sheet from the dollar store. These are always super fun to craft with. And I just took a package of jumbo wooden craft sticks, like the super jumbo kind, and my miter shears, or like heavy duty craft scissors, but I really like miter shears for cutting things like this. Sometimes you have to score it once or twice. Sometimes I think the cuts are really easy and you get it on the first try, and sometimes you have to score it 2 or 3 times. I don't really understand why. Also, I think I've used these shears so many times that they're getting a little bit dull because I had a harder time cutting these than I normally do. So I think I need to either replace the blade or figure out a way to sharpen it. But anyway, you're just going to cut a ton of these wooden craft sticks down to size at varying lengths so that you eventually will cover the entire cookie sheet. So I'm going to speed this up for you because you don't need to watch all of it. And then just a little note about the edge pieces, because the edge of the pan is rounded. I just used my miter shears, and on the 4 edge pieces, see, I just kind of trimmed a tiny little triangle off just to, I mean, it's not a perfectly round corner, but it's better than a complete 90-degree angle there. And then you have to paint everything. So I transferred all of my cut popsicle sticks into a cardboard box so that I could take it outside and spray paint everything. And you want to keep everything in the same order, otherwise it's going to be like a mind-bending puzzle trying to figure out where you want to put the wooden craft sticks back on the cookie sheet and getting everything to line up and match up again. I just took everything outside, white spray primer on all of my craft sticks, and I didn't even do like a really thick coat. I kind of left some of the wood grain showing through. It was just like one quick light coat. And then I distressed everything once that dried with Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Castle, which is like a perfect gray beige kind of color. 1-inch flat paintbrush, super dry brush technique here. So you load a little bit of paint on your brush and then pounce it off like on a paper towel or on your paint tray. So you just have a tiny bit of paint and then brush back and forth with that dry brush. You could also just paint everything a solid color. I mean, if like you're into color, this would look great, like green or blue, navy blue or something. Just paint the whole thing. Or if you just wanted to paint everything solid with spray paint and skip this step to save yourself some time, that would work as well. And then I just painted the whole cookie tray. So I gave it 1 coat of white paint just as a primer. And then I actually didn't even paint the whole thing, just the edges, because the center part there is going to be covered with your wooden craft sticks. And so this paint is Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color French Linen, which is just a little bit lighter than that Castle color that we used to distress the wooden sticks. So once again, 1-inch flat paintbrush. I had to do a couple coats on this one to get full coverage. And then grab your hot glue gun and we're going to put everything back together. So just dry fit all the popsicle sticks one final time. And then just a dab of hot glue on the back of each wooden craft stick to secure them into place. And then your tray needs handles. So I just grabbed some jute rope. So I've actually made this craft once before, and on that version, I took a drill and I drilled holes into the edge of the cookie sheet and ran the rope through and tied a knot. Great option, but if you don't want to bust out the power tools, unfray the end of the rope and cut a little piece off. Like there's like 3 little sections, trim one section just to kind of thin it out. Like imagine you're giving someone a haircut and you want to like thin it out a little bit. That's just to make it glue down a little easier. So I had to dollop of hot glue there and hot glue down each end. And then to cover those frayed ends, I used a half wooden ball. So like they're like almost like wooden beads, but it's just a wood half ball that's in half. And I painted it to match my tray and then just hot glued that right over on top of my jute rope. So here you see separating the 3 sections and just trimming down one of the little sections there to thin it out, and then hot glue everything in place, and you have 2 little rope handles for your decorative tray. All right, this craft, I guess, is more of a jute rope craft than it is a dollar store kitchen craft, but we're gonna include it anyway just for fun. So I grabbed just a big plastic bowl from the Dollar Tree for this. You could use any really bowl you want. If you have a mixing bowl at home, cover it with some plastic wrap. So I just did 3 pieces in all different directions. And then you want to use a lot of Mod Podge. You'll eventually see here, I started to run low and I actually had to go to the store because I didn't have another jar of Mod Podge on hand, which is major rookie crafting mistake right there, considering how much or how frequently I use Mod Podge. But either way, this is matte Mod Podge, and you just want to apply it all over the bottom of the bowl there, and then grab your nautical jute rope. This is from Dollar Tree. I ended up using 2 packages of rope on this. Cut off the end that has that tape on it and then start to coil your rope. And we're just making a bowl here, so you're just going to coil all the way around. I used my fine point hot glue gun in various spots to kind of secure the coil as I went. But just set that initial coil in place and then start wrapping all the way around and keep going until you use that entire thing of jute rope. And like I said, I used 2 packages of rope, so when I reached the end, to marry the 2 ends together, I cut both rope ends at a 45-degree angle. Heavy-duty craft scissors, these are Fiskars, are amazing for cutting through the rope. Then a little dab of hot glue, and you just smooth those 2 45-degree rope ends together, and you have a pretty seamless transition from one piece of rope to the other. And then continue to coil all the way down the sides of the bowl, apply more Mod Podge here and there as necessary, and hot glue as you go until you reach almost the end of the rope, but not completely to the end of the rope, because we want to make handles for our basket. So what I did here is I just used a piece of masking tape, and that was for me just visually to mark the center line of the bowl. It's optional. And then take on one side a little section of that rope and stick it out. So don't coil it completely smooth. Take about a 6-inch section and let it pop out about an inch or 2 from the bowl and hot glue it in place. And then hot glue and coil around to the other side. And this is where the masking tape guide kind of helps, so that your handles are evenly spaced on opposite sides of the bowl there. And then cut the end at a 45-degree angle, just like you did where you joined the 2 pieces of rope together, and just secure that to the edge of the bowl there, and you're in business. So then I just let this sit overnight to dry so the Mod Podge would dry, and then came back the next day and just peeled that bowl away. The Mod Podge kind of stuck to the plastic wrap and kind of created a bit of a film, but I just peeled it away. And then I came in with, shocking, more Mod Podge and an old book. So I pick up books at like library book sales where you fill a grocery bag for $5. And this one just looked really cool. It's kind of hard to tell from this far away, but the pages were really worn and kind of had this pattern on them. So I was like, this would be really great for crafting. So I just added a bunch of Mod Podge right in the middle of the bowl and started ripping book pages into pieces and smoothing that down into my bowl. And here you can see my Mod Podge running low. I had to run out to Walmart quickly so I could finish this craft. But just keep going all the way around until the whole thing has been completely covered, and then when you get to the edges there, you can like rip pieces and make sure that there's like a nice smooth transition between the edge of the paper and the edge of the bowl there. But just make sure you cover all the rope with book pages and then smooth a coat of Mod Podge over the top of everything, set it aside to dry, and you're in business with a cute little decorative bowl for really anything. For this craft, you'll want to start with 4 stretched artist canvases. These came from Dollar Tree. These are just little 4x6 canvases. You don't want to go much bigger than that. And use a pen blade or a razor blade to cut away all of the canvas from that wooden frame. You could also just as easily do this with 4 picture frames, but I've always wanted to do this as a reverse canvas craft, and I wanted a wood look, not a painted picture frame look, so that's why I went with stretched canvas for this one. Be sure to save, you're going to discard, not use it, but save the canvas piece for another project, great for making small pieces of ribbon or embellishments on other things. And then I just used my Waverly Antique Wax and a 1-inch flat paintbrush and stained all 4 of the wooden frames, and then use a paper towel to wipe away any excess stain. Easy peasy, set that aside to dry. And then I grabbed a Dollar Tree cutting mat. So these come in a 3-pack, and they're this kind of like white opaque-ish color, so great for a lantern because light can shine through it. So I just took a Sharpie and traced outside the wooden frame, and then I cut about a 1/4 inch inside my Sharpie line so that my cutting mat piece would be smaller than the wood frame. Grabbed my fine point hot glue gun and just hot glued that plastic cutting mat right into place, and then repeated that with the other 3 wooden frames. So then I had 4 sides to my lantern. And then you just stagger the 4 frames together. So hot glue one edge of the frame and secure that to the back of one of the frames, and then hot glue another edge and secure that to the back of the frame until all 4 are hot glued together, and you have a little lantern. And then obviously I don't think you'd want to put like a real candle in here, so you can do either a battery operated pillar candle, or in this case I just did a string of battery operated fairy lights. At this time of year, Dollar Tree usually sells all sorts of stuff for like picnicking and barbecue and outdoor dining stuff. So I grabbed this large oval plastic tray, and I decided I wanted to try and turn it into some DIY wall art decor. So this is definitely going to be a do as I say, not as I do tutorial, and I'm going to show you the mistakes that I made so you can learn from my errors. Also, I only bought 1 tray, so I wasn't able to make a second video, so we're just rolling with it. So I initially thought, oh, I'm just going to do a little bit of spray primer and then use this stone texture spray paint on top of it to make a stone finish so it looks like a stone picture frame. That did not work as anticipated. As you can see here, this is after the first coat of spray primer, and it caused me all sorts of problems. You could still see some red poking through. So don't do this. So pretend that it's just like a plain, unpainted red tray you see here without spray primer, and you're just using some craft paper or wrapping paper or whatever to press onto the frame, crease it with your fingers, and then use craft scissors to cut it out. This is gonna protect that center part of that oval tray from your spray paint, and especially that stone texture spray paint that has that texture on it, which would then prevent you from laying a picture flat inside the oval tray. So I got that brown paper template cut out, and then I just used double-sided tape to put it in the center of the tray. And you'll see here in a bit when I remove that paper, it's going to take that spray primer with it, which was mistake number one here. But I just smoothed that paper right over the double-sided tape. And then I went out and I was like, oh, I'm just going to add the stone texture spray paint on top of this. Well, the problem is the stone texture spray paint is not complete coverage. It's just the texture. So you can see here, some of that red is still poking through, and it's the white spray primer, which I was not happy with. So I went back and I just used some cream spray chalk paint that you see here. And I made sure I had complete coverage and all that red was covered. Then I went back and added the stone texture spray paint. So here's what the finished thing looks like. And you'll see here as I'm peeling off that brown craft paper, that double-sided tape is taking some of that spray primer with it. And then not all of my edges were exactly perfect, so I just used some plain chalk paint from my craft stash that was a similar color and just kind of touched up around the edges just to be super duper certain that none of that white spray primer or that red plastic poked through once I added my picture. And then I used the same brown paper template. I just peeled off that double-sided tape, and then I set it right on top of my picture. I ordered this picture from Etsy. I will link to it. And then I just had it printed at Walgreens, like 11 by 14 for a couple bucks. I caught a 50% discount code, so it wasn't that expensive. Just trace the whole thing with a Sharpie marker and then cut it out with scissors, and just be very careful as you're cutting it out that you trim away all that Sharpie marker. You don't want to leave any edges where people will be able to see Sharpie on the edge. And then I just tried to undo my mistake here with the spray primer. So I just used some packing tape to try to lift as much of that primer away so that I would be able to securely tape my picture down to the oval tray. And then once again, it was just more double-sided tape all the way around the edge of the oval and smoothed my picture right into place. And the end result is, I think, a really unique oval stone wall frame made out of a $1.25 plastic serving tray. Usually at the beginning of every summer, Dollar Tree carries all sorts of outdoor dining accessories like these deli baskets. So I grabbed one and I just gave it a quick coat of white spray primer. I did one side, let it dry, flipped it over to the other side. And then I just grabbed this wooded slat sign from Dollar Tree. I think it was from the Dollar Tree Plus, maybe it was $3. And I just cut the hanger off it because we're gonna hang it vertically, not horizontally. And I just gave it a quick coat of gel stain, really any stain you like. And I just made sure to get in all the nooks and crannies and all the edges. And then wipe away any excess stain with a paper towel. And since I did cut that hanger off, when I ended up hanging my finished project up, I just used a 3M Velcro command hook, or you could add a new twine hanger. If you have a staple gun, you could staple twine onto the back and hang it vertically instead of horizontally. And then after that, I grabbed my spray painted deli basket and I just grabbed some brown chalk paint or acrylic craft paint with a 1-inch flat paintbrush and a very dry brush technique, and I just kind of brushed all over the basket, both the inside and the outside. And then once that brown paint had dried, and it dried very, very quickly because it was such a light, thin coat, I then came back with some cream chalk paint, and I just did the same thing to kind of cover up some of that brown. The idea is to kind of try and make this look like a wicker basket, and just distress it however you like. You could use whatever paint colors make you happy or match your decor. And then I thought it looked a little bit too cream, so then I blended in a little bit of brown paint. You just layer however makes you happy, and if this seems too intimidating to you, you could just paint it a solid color of chalk paint and be totally fine. Then I did a combination of E6000 glue for long-term permanent hold and a little bit of hot glue for instant hold to the back of that deli basket. and I secured it right in the center of my wooden sign. And then I just grabbed some flowers from my craft stash. These came from Dollar Tree. It was like one full stem of this lavender stuff and then like a half a stem left over from a previous project. And I just kind of pinched those all together and then wrapped them with twine a few times and then secured everything with a bow. And then once I had my little flower bundle completed, I just hot glued that right into place in the center of my deli basket. And then here's my finished little flower basket hanging wall sign, and I don't think anyone would ever guess that it started with a plastic deli basket. And here are all of my finished crafts together in one spot. I do hope you enjoyed watching these projects come together. Until next time, happy making.